every single performance can teach you something. It's the hardest career, so they've got to have something that can drive beyond all that.
You don't have to worry about what questions I'm going to ask you. Because it's just, to be honest, it's just about getting to know, like, your life as a singer. I think that's, I tried to do a little bit of research for today, and there's not a lot on you.
I know there isn't. Oh, there's my head.
But there's no, well, there you go. Because I was like, I'll do some research about Janice, and I'll try and find out some things. Oh yeah, that little fact. And there's nothing in there.
No.
No.
In the world, you mean? Or
Live on the internet.
No. Somebody, the wonderful woman that took an hour, I had an hour thing on the radio. She said, I've only found one thing here about you. You record it every week. I said, that's right. So she'd done that.
Were you recording every week?
Yeah, I did all the singing and the school programs for us schools. Yeah, I made a whole lot of records after that.
Yeah. But when was that?
But before you were born. In the 60s.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of, are we going now?
Yeah.
Oh, we're not. We're stuck again.
Why?
No, we were just talking to each other. No, you.
But that's the point. I said it's just a conversation. I love that. And we're not going to start again. It's also going to be in it.
No one will want to watch it out there. So, now when I was young, I'll tell you about it. See, you can't find anything about it, I'll tell you.
Okay.
I had a lovely voice. Everyone told me I had a lovely voice. And I recorded a lot, and I got every part I ever wanted. And I was just thinking I had a lovely voice because they thought, beautiful voice. They always added a phrase, you've got so much potential. And I thought, oh, I've got a lovely voice. I didn't realise what so much potential meant at that point. And so I was doing the part of Ruth in Pirates with a wonderful singer, was the Pirate King. And I had the flu so badly when I knelt at Frederick's feet, I had to pull myself up in person. It was so horrible. And we were doing a duet, and he sang louder and louder and louder because no one could hear me. And I thought, my God, this man's held his voice back for me all this time, as I never realised it. And then this dear woman who used to look after me when I was young, she was a wonderful singer. She'd gone to the Sydney Conservatorium. Her father was actually a professor of singing, but she had the voice of a goddess, but she had no health to go with it, so of course she couldn't sing. Important. And she said, oh, what a beautiful voice. If only you knew what to do with it. One sentence changed my life, because then I suddenly thought, that's what, you've got such potential means. It meant I had to get in and learn how to sing properly. So I came up, really changed my whole life. Yes, I was on country service bar, which was teachers used to not be able to get more wages unless they got into the country. So I went to Greenhithe, which is no longer country.
Well, because back then that was a lost site. That was
like 10-acre blocks everywhere. Oh God, it was wonderful. Come and see the lambs, come and see the chickens, come and see the everything. It was wonderful. And I learnt from this marvellous teacher, Muriel Gale, who claim to fame was to sing the alto in the Albert Hall for that.
Oh, wow.
And it was such an incredible thing after doing the singing I'd done, the broadcasts and resource game, all sorts of things, to actually go back to doing just nothing but exercises for a year. But in that year, just to feel the voice coming right, and it was just wonderful. So I started singing, always teaching school as well, and doing shows after show after show after show. And people then started to ask me, would you like to give me a few lessons? And I thought, well, what an ideal thing to do, because my teacher's there and I can ask. I was so naive. I can ask her what I don't know, said I. And so I started doing that. And there was a man that we played the leads in Utopia. That was a Gilbert Sullivan show that never is done because it's so wordy. And
a Gilbert and Sullivan show that's even wordier than all of the others.
Yes, miles to him.
I have to have a listen.
Hey. It's the only one where the contralto's the gorgeous woman instead of the old bag. So I like that part. But this man, he said to me, would you, I'd love to have some lessons from you. And I thought, because he had a very good voice, he'd left New Zealand and then he came back and he wanted to start singing again.
Mm-hmm.
And so we worked together a lot and sang together a lot. And one day I remember throwing him a folder for the Moog Song Quest, which was the main thing in New Zealand. I said, how about going for this? And I thought he'd say, oh, no. He said, yeah, why not? So when he won the Moog Song Quest, life was different, and it was so lovely because people recognised me as a teacher, and I had people say all the time, why did you give up school teaching? Why are you doing it part-time when your pupil was one of the biggest thing in the country? But I loved school teaching. I sing, I loved teaching singing, so it just went on like that, and then I had some marvellous pupils. My mother was very ill, and I couldn't possibly look after her, teach school, teach pupils. And it's when Helen Megan came into my life, who had the most wonderful career. She's a amazing opera all over the world. And
so you taught her?
Oh, yes.
Oh, I didn't realise that you were. I thought you were just friends. I didn't realise that you were.
No, she had one lesson and she left and she said, I'm never going back to her. She's far too nice to be a singing teacher. And I still to this day don't know how awful a singing teacher should have been, but I was too nice to be one. And she only came back because she was given a role in an opera. And she thought, God, I better have some lessons. She came back for 3 lessons a week for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Never missed a lesson.
Uh-huh.
And then Lisa came into my life, and she had done so well as an actress and had so many different teachers for different things. And she kept saying, you've got to go up school teacher. You must do this full time. And I really listened to her. Well, it's husband, at least she'd won the Best Actress twice. One for her lead in McDowell's Daughters in Australia. And she'd only ever worked in professional theatre. So I really listened to her and I thought, no, this is the time to have a go. So I had a lot of pupils as a part-time teacher, and then to have to, all of a sudden, you were eating the money you were making as a teacher. So it all grew from there. And I just...
How long ago was... So then how long had you... So you were classroom teaching, and then...
From 1964, and then I taught Lyle 1 Mobile in 77. So I started about 74 teaching. And then in 91, Mum was sick. So that I did all that time teaching and singing and teaching singing. See, I think this one was prepared for 6.
Because you're working, but like, what were the hours then as a classroom teacher?
Well, we're always at school by 8 o'clock and doing, the day there. And then when I was on stage, I go home, have a bit of a rest, and then get to the theatre. And the hard part when you're teaching, doing a daily job and singing, is to get the adrenaline down before you go to bed so that you can get to sleep so you could be at school by 8 in the morning. That's the hard part.
Wow.
But
and so many people, I find that especially after a performance that you're like on
you're
such
right
a
up
high.
there.
You're right up here, and then you're trying desperately to like, what can I do by breathing?
I always remember I did a show that was the first time in New Zealand it was done. And I loved the show. And somebody said to me, "Oh, the music isn't memorable." And I remember one night just lying there with this music going on till 4 in the morning. I wish it wasn't memorable. But thinking, oh, God,
it does really go around in your head then, doesn't it? I had that, songs like plague me for just like days and days, and I can't get, there's like one verse out of my head.
Yeah, I know.
So then you taught that's nearly...
that was 92.
That's nearly, 18 years or so that you did both there.
Oh, yes, I do.
And then you switched to full-time teaching.
Yes.
And you just told me before you had 60... I just am gobsmacked that you had 60 students in a week. I thought I had a lot at 45. But 60. How did you remember their names?
I don't think I'd remember them now.
Some people come into my room and I'm like, what are they? I know obviously who you are. I could remember what they're working on, but I can't remember their name for the life. So
I used to keep names there so as I knew which one.
That's what I have to do. So that look at my calendar to see what time is it and who's in front of me, because I forget the name of the person.
Yes, I had it all sort of worked out, but it's easy to forget. And I had some amazing pupils. I really did. I loved my life. It was such an honour just to have nothing but singing teaching. I could just concentrate on it fully. And that's when I taught at the New Zealand school and I adjudicated all over the country. Those sort of things I couldn't have done as a school teacher and a singing teacher. So,
well, it's sort of like, they're almost 2 full-time jobs.
they are singing take huge because I really principal of the school as well. So I really worked. I'm sorry I worked.
Oh my God, you were deputy principal. I didn't realize you were deputy principal. Far out. But those obviously singing teaching often starts when when school gets out. So, that's a lot of it, the majority of our sort of work begins after the school day. But at the same time, far out.
But I was very lucky at the beginning. I had so many professional people that, like a lot of editors and things, that were free in the day. So I got the day filled with them and the odd person that was married and at home, say. And then
I think my lesson was like at midday or something on my lunch break from work. Yeah.
People used to come in the lunch break.
Yeah, so I love lunch break. I think it's a great time. But did you then, so when people were saying that you had a lovely voice when you were younger though, did you, then you always sang, right, as a child?
Yes, I sang. Yes, Mum was a lovely singer, very lovely singer. And I used to go and listen to her after I'd be at school, and I'd see everyone crying, and I couldn't think, why would they be crying? Because she moved people to such a degree. She was a beautiful singer. And so I'd always had singing there. And then I won the first competition I ever went to, and I thought, oh, this is good. And I was very lucky going to a school with a marvellous singing music teacher at college. And she opened a lot up to me, for choral work. And I used to be, when I left school, in the Renaissance singers, then they were the most elite group. I was so immature, but they were just bright up there. And composers, all sorts of people. There's only about 15 of us, but we did the most wonderful things. And when I look at the syllabuses that come through for Royal Schools and Trinity and see their names as the composers and think, I sat next to them, you know. So I'm saying this was wonderful. But I did, I got away with everything because of the quality of my voice. But it wasn't until I was realizing if that boy that time had cut back his sound to match my voice, that I realized how small it was. So to actually get it developed was such a thrill.
Wow. How old were you then?
24.
Wow. And so you hadn't had formal training?
Oh, I had, because nobody ever, well, in those days, now we know that the longer you're singing, the more mistakes you're making, unless you know what you're doing. We knew that.
Yeah.
No, if you were 16, you could start singing as a soprano, and if you were 18, you could start singing as a contralto. So my mother, who'd had a wonderful teacher, wouldn't start me off till I was a soprano, and I lost a whole octave, and Mum had done the same thing. And I thought it was the most horrendous thing to lose my top notes because I could get up to F, no trouble. And but when I knew Janet Baker had the same problem, I thought,
well, then you're in good company.
Look at them, they're sorry, Mum. So but I had lessons from someone who took it very lightly and someone who was a marvellous, marvellous pianist, but she wasn't a singing teacher, but she was a wonderful musician. I was very lucky to have that, but it wasn't increasing my volume. And that's what that Muriel, to give me what the body actually was meant to be doing. It was such a thrill to
amazing.
Get it produced.
Well, especially seeing, I mean, like opera is sort of like, I mean, it's not, there's a sort of difference between, you know, someone singing a bit of folk song or something like that and you know, opera is so far away from where we usually speak.
Absolutely.
That it's, you know, it's a very different sort of sound.
Yes, and knowing you've got to get over 50 plus people in you've got to sing.
Mm-hmm. So you mainly then worked in opera?
Opera and light opera. And I was very lucky at the time. The 50-year band went off Gilbert Sullivan. So everyone put on Gilbert Sullivan. I didn't like it first, but I got closer and closer into it because I knew my dear friend's father was Graham Clifford, who worked for Doyley Cart for years as the comedian. And he told me so much about the insides of all the shows. And I loved him in the end because those parts really suited me. And then I wanted to do a lot of music theatre. You know, Mother Abbess and Julie and those lovely parts.
And what do you mean the 50-year ban though?
The 50-year, once the rights came off.
Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, once the rights were, after 50 years, the rights had left, so everyone could put on the Gilbert Sullivan, and they didn't have to pay rights. And of course, everybody did do that because it was such a saving.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you know, the rights
3 times. Yeah.
But you know, it just costs so much money for smaller companies to put on shows. So of course, you know, you're looking to these older shows to be able to put them on. Gosh. Did you notice then a huge difference when you started like formal training then at like 24 with someone who was a bit more of like a serious singing teacher to develop that sound? Did you notice like straight away, or was it a bit of like, oh, do I really need to learn this? Or did you just...
Because I'd had that lead up to all this potential. You've got potential, you know. I'd had that lead up to know that's what I needed.
Okay.
And I knew that was a good age, actually, to be woken up because I was mature enough then to make go of it. And it was such a thrill to go, all auditions and get every role you ever wait for. I mean, I just loved it.
It is very lovely. It's very, very satisfying, isn't it? To have that happen. But is that then, I mean, at that age, you've taught for like a number of years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, for a long time. But you also, have.
I'm on the 64th year now.
Whoa, that's amazing. That's amazing. And so, was you also starting off with, working in primary school, you teach also like all ranges of ages.
Yes. Oh, I didn't then. No, I used to have much more, the older people. I didn't teach children till quite further along before I realized the changing in the ideas that younger people should have lessons. Wasn't until then I started doing that.
Someone said that to my parents when I was younger as well. Like, oh no, don't get her lessons until she's 16.
That's what's the thought.
And that was really the thought back there. I mean, I disagree with that now, but I'm on the other hand very thankful that I was allowed to develop the sound that I did develop away from someone forming me into their version of and also coming from me like Tamaheri, little rural. Even Hamilton itself, we only had like 1 or 2 singing teachers. Yeah. So there wasn't actually even access to that until my then teacher came back from London, and she was really good friends with my neighbour who was David Sidwell.
Oh, was it?
And then he said, oh no, Pamela's come back, Pamela Wallace.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Yes, but he was overseas with Annalise. Yes. Yeah. Taught Annalise.
You taught Annalise and then So she then came back.
Yes, they were in Paris together.
Oh.
She was she was the young person in the Paris Opera. Annalise. And then Pam lived in Paris. She.
Well, I don't think I really talked to her too much about what and I was 16, so I don't think I really.
Yeah, they were Annalise. She'd sing out up to the we were bad. Look. Yes.
Oh. Yeah. But I was the first singing student.
Oh. She was a lovely singer.
She's an amazing singer. Yeah, she's an amazing singer. Now yeah, she's wonderful. I haven't seen her in ages, but she's still teaching in Hamilton.
Oh, is she?
Yeah. And so I was, that's when I started when I was 16. But now what do you now think that what age do you have an age that you think people should start?
It's interesting that I remember someone saying, if someone's going to sing, you're never going to stop them. And I think that was true of me. Mm-hmm. I just did all the singing, the whole as bolus that I could do.
Yeah.
And no one could have stopped me.
Yeah.
So I do think when you can get if you can only get the real essential things into people when they're young, that they're always breathing correctly, that they're always placing the voice in the right place, that they're never straining glands. All those things, and it has to be a plus because it's so much more natural. What we did was natural, but it wasn't natural with the actual rules of the singing voice, but I think if they can make it their voice the best it can be, that's the only, I came up to Auckland, I thought the only thing I want to do, make my voice the best I can.
Yeah.
And I would have never dreamt of all the things that would have happened. Do that. And I've always, if anyone comes to me and asks for lessons, and that's the reason they want to do, I always think that's actually the best reason, to make what your instrument that you've got, to make it the best it can be.
No, that's amazing. I think that's so important that you've just got that internal drive to want to get better at it, rather than being told you have to learn to sing. I think singing's just one of those things that, I suppose any instrument is if you don't want to do it, you can just sit in front of the instrument,
get nowhere.
Yeah, absolutely nowhere. I suppose it's the same with singing, but singing, I think,
it's in you.
Yeah,
you're no good unless you're feeling it.
Yeah,
as a singer,
absolutely.
Otherwise, you just blah 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 blah.
That sounds about right. I think there's, but what would you think then about like the theory and all that sort of stuff and the sight singing and all those sorts of other parts?
I think that's tremendously important. I think a lot of people, we're known as the bad musicians. When you think of the olden days when they were the best musicians, singers, and we can be bad musicians because they don't have to sit down and study enough theory and enough instrumental work. They can just turn on this, that, and the other, and they've got a backing track, and they don't know enough about music. And I think it's such a they're taught to me. If someone can't look at a page of music and know what everything on that page is actually saying, they're not going to get the most out of that song, are they? They have to know the rules of the written. It's like being able to read a book. They've got to read the music to know it really.
Oh, I think so too. I think something that's really being lost with karaoke being so prevalent on the internet and things and YouTube, and that you're no longer required to read music. And I notice that it's to a huge detriment of the actual singers themselves, because they end up not being able to listen to what's going on in the music. They're just watching the words kind of bounce along the screen.
Yes.
And then when those words aren't there anymore, which of course they're not when you're on stage, you've got no way of actually having that feel of the reference point within the music.
Yes. And the boys, I've got some boys overseas singing professionally. You look back in their exams, they always got full marks for side singing and full marks for oral.
Wow.
Never anything else.
Amazing.
That's a very, very sound start.
Yeah. I must admit, I was pretty terrible at sightseeing. I'm still pretty terrible at sightseeing. Yeah. I like that. It's very important, but I'm really bad at it. But I think it just but for me, I say that it's important because it held me back so much.
Yes.
I know that that's the reason why I didn't get into like the New Zealand youth choir, because they heard my song. They were like, yeah, but then I did the sightseeing. I had no idea what I was doing.
Quick enough.
It was that
they had to work at such speed, and dudes want to be there, and they're not.
Well, I mean, it wasn't that I wasn't quick enough. I couldn't read it. I realized it just was like.
But not they are working at such a.
Oh yeah.
They've got to have those people that can read.
Oh, exactly. They're just like, bam, piece of music. Let's sing this song together and go for it.
Do it. One pupil of mine, he was at Cambridge, and they used to have a choir of 12 people, and they would rehearse it once and record it the second time. Everybody in that group was pitch perfect.
Yeah.
And that, can you imagine that their sight reading be that amazing?
Wow. But that's something you have to have for all professional choirs, basically. Yes. You have to be able to, and like chorus and being able to read quickly.
And also in auditions, people are given a piece of music, and then they can, this can happen for music theatre, they can have to come back in 5 minutes to sing it. Well, they've got no show in the world if they can't read it.
No, absolutely. I think it's really important.
It's a craft that has to be learned.
Mm-hmm.
And to make you a complete singer.
Interesting, isn't it? But I think it's especially part of the exam curriculum, although I feel like the exams are often quite prescriptive in the way that they tell people, these sets of songs are for this level. I do really like the idea of saying, okay, well, actually, it's really to do with the oral and the sight reading exercises rather than necessarily the selection of songs.
Yes, that's right.
But
you think of it all levels, really.
Yeah.
But they with COVID, they skipped the oral and they skipped the sight reading, and that was quite a different thing because they couldn't do it. You see, you couldn't do an exam because there was no examiner that you sit in the room, so you had to do it from that you had to do it in one session of recording. You couldn't do one little bit and then do the song next up. It had to be done in one session.
Oh, okay.
But it did miss out the oral and the sight singing.
I mean, they brought it back in again now. No, they brought it back in again now, though, right? That they brought in the oral and the sight reading.
I think so. Yes.
I think that's very important for the exams.
Yes, because it gives you a reason to make the kids actually do it. Otherwise, they think they can get away without it.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple. I got a lot of students like that. Although I never really focus on it. I suppose maybe after our discussion now, I'll be like, we're all going to do sight reading now. You've never done it before. You breathe this music. You have to. Dennis says you have to.
One year I decided everyone's going to start with it. I had these exercises for a second and third and fourth and a fifth and sixth and seventh. And everyone was going to start the year doing the exercises. They were little songs with these boring, same intervals. Well, I'd go for a walk and a swim every day, and those songs were going through my head, but I was nearly drowning myself. Just was so sick of them. And so I only did that 1 year. But I've often got onto that because they actually keep doing that interval so much.
Mm-hmm.
The Kai is another wonderful one to do that with.
That's what you were saying, but I need to look that up because I probably remember it from the exercises that we did.
Yes.
But I can't remember for the life of me which exercises they are.
Yes.
But the exercises, like you're saying, they haunt me. If I start to do one or two of them,
yes,
they just like get drilled into my head and then I can't hear them anymore. And then people are like, oh, yeah, no, we had to do that exercise. I'm like, we'll skip it this week. Let's do something else. We'll go straight to the song. Let's not go worry about the exercises.
Oh, I do.
But I don't know if I ever told you that, like, you're the reason why I know that you're the reason why I started teaching.
Oh, please.
Because you gave me, I don't know if you remember, you gave up your Friday teaching and you gave me your Friday. Because you used to audition people for starting lessons.
Yes.
And I think you had a bunch of students who wanted to start, but you didn't have enough space.
No, I didn't.
And so the ones that were the beginners, then you passed them on to me.
Yes.
That was amazing. I didn't really want to teach. But
I made you realise, didn't you?
Well, you told me that I'd earn more money than waitressing.
Well, what?
And then I asked so many questions. I just remember it was yesterday. You said I asked so many questions about technique. I must be a good teacher, But I always found that quite, really fascinating. I think I then found that I really enjoyed it.
Yes, yeah. Yes, because you were already thinking like that.
I think I was always very. One of my singing teachers in London stopped teaching me because I asked him the question. She was like, "It just is," and I was like, well, "It can't be. What's the wrong? What's the why?" She just says, "It just is. Go to this person. Go to Anne Marie's feed if you want to know why. Not with me. Just do it." And I was just like, "Okay." I always wanted an answer for why.
Yes, and the voice is the hardest thing to give answers because it's all happening inside. It's so hard, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But what do you feel like is one of the most important? I know there's like lots of important things, but as someone who sort of like has taught so many singers for so long, what do you think is the most important aspect of teaching singing? Is it really about teaching the singing? Is that the most important part of it?
Helen, as you know,
Yeah.
used to stay with me in between her different gigs around the world. And I'd go up and I'd say, "Oh, you should hear this person's voice. Oh, I'm just so excited about them, than you." And she said, she always said the same thing. "I don't want to hear about their voice. I only want to hear about their hunger."
Really?
And in the end, attitude is everything. You can have a wonderful voice. I've taught some people that have had wonderful voices. They haven't had the humility. They thought they're so marvelous. They haven't had the passion. They haven't wanted it enough to get them through. And in the end, attitude's everything. The attitude that will actually drive them. That's what is the most important thing.
That's so interesting, because I think a lot of people think that it's just, you've just like born a good singer.
And you are born a good singer, and you can be a healthy singer. Or if you're an unhealthy person, that's not going to work either. There's so many aspects, but in the end, all I can say is it's the drive, it's the polishing, it's the hardest career. We all know 98% of people out of work. How many people would cope with that? How many people could cope with 100 rejections in a row?
Yeah.
It's the hardest career. So they've got to have something that can drive beyond all that. And that can only happen with a very special attitude.
No, absolutely. Sure. I think as I was saying to you before, I think that was so hard for me, really getting like so many no's. You've got to like the resilience of like
to bounce up again.
Yeah.
Time. Yes.
No, I think it just like the no just kind of gradually like pushed me down. I don't think it I wasn't really able to bounce back, I think, after all, because like you were saying that you always got compliments on your voice. I always got compliments on my voice. But then that switch to then I didn't realize that it was so much more about the attitude than it was about just being a good singer, that it was actually more about wanting it and also just being a nice person.
And being easy to work with.
Yeah. Not that I feel like I was a not nice person or not easy, but I think my fear of in the situations maybe a very sort of like quiet, sort of I'm quite reclusive in those situations, rather than showing who I kind of really was.
With an audition, I got into a pattern that I just could feel myself getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. I can still see it now, and I'd go in there as if I was right on the top of where I could be. And I think that helped me so much. I could just feel it growing and growing and growing, the energy.
Oh, wow.
By the time I got to the audition, I gave it everything. And I'll always remember that growing, that it was a wonderful thing.
Is that like a feeling of the energy?
Yes, it was all the energy just growing and growing, so that when that moment came that audition was there, it was everything. I could do it. Yes.
So you didn't get nervous at all during auditions?
Yes, but I used it into this. I got nervous, but I used it as this way of, that really worked.
Well, I mean, that sounds like a a way that what I would teach a singer to help them with their nerves, because nervousness and excitement they present the same way in the body. But did someone teach you that, or was that something that you learned?
I'm just thought of it now. I just remember that.
Wow.
When I was waiting, I could just get myself. I was bigger than when I got in there, and it worked for me. It was wonderful.
That's so cool.
Yes.
I mean, that's you taught yourself a coping mechanism that we would usually teach as a way to cope with the nerves and things like that.
Yes, because you have to be nervous. If you're not nervous, you're not worth anything. But you have to learn to use the nerves, and that's why I was so keen on giving performance experience to my pupils and monthly concerts, because until they can control the nerves, they can't really do the best for themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nerves, that was definitely one of the reasons why I stopped singing for a while, because just the nerves ended up just getting so big.
At the top.
And exactly, and then they like overtook the voice.
Is there any more that you think that can be useful?
I find this so fascinating, because I know that you were saying to me before that you just like, how could it be? But I think it's so interesting, like what you've done and how many people you...
Yes, I can't believe how many people have come into my life. I've been so blessed having the right people at the right time. I can tell you, when I gave up school teaching, it was a very, very good time for music theatre or professional things going around Australia and New Zealand. And I just had so many of those pupils just at the right time. You know, it was just I was so lucky.
Yeah. I mean, I think,
To
luck kind of comes into a lot of what we do, really. But did you find then, how many singing teachers were in Auckland at that time? Because there weren't that many.
Well, it was a very famous Sister Leo.
I thought you had lessons with her. No. Oh, okay. I wrote it down here. I was like, I thought I heard somewhere, but then again, when I went to go and look on the internet to find more information about
But I tell you what, the first person that came up to me when Lyle won the Mobisson, because her pupils had always won the Mobisson, who was the first person there, her. And she said to me, I said, you'll be the only person here that knows how I'm feeling.
Oh, wow.
That's great.
Yeah, she was an amazing teacher. And for anyone who doesn't know, Sister Mary Leo was a very famous New Zealand singing teacher who taught, I think, most famously Kiri Takanoa. And it sounds so bad, but I can't remember the other.
No, mate.
No, in the major. And yeah, of course, a lot of other amazing singers. And she was incredible. Yeah, amazing teacher.
A tremendous number of pupils too. She really did. She had choirs also.
Wow,
it's amazing.
But you're coming back to the point of like your performance, and of the idea of the performing being important for the singers. We were talking about that before. You organise 8 to 10 concerts a year for your singing students. I'm so gobsmacked because I struggle to organise 2. It's true. I really I have like a bit of a mental breakdown after every one. And I definitely get sick after each of them. But I think,
So the next day after the concerts, I just was absolutely drained of adrenaline as if I'd been on stage myself. What I had, I'd always talk.
But what was your drive then to put on so many performances?
Because this is my real drive was the more performances you do, the more you can learn from them. For example, what do you eat before a performance? How many times do you have to perform before you realize exactly what your body works best for food?
Yeah.
Those sort of things. You've got so many opportunities. Every time you have, I used to say to people, yes, this is the song, but try and do something today that you've never done before. If you can just try and do one thing, like walk onto the stage as if you own it, for example, and not. If you can just do one thing, and then at the end of that performance, other than getting through it, you say, I actually kept my knees from knocking or something, something. And the more you try to aim something at each performance, it just grows and grows until you feel more settled in your body. Because in a show, we get the wonderful chance of rehearsing and rehearsing. If you're using every rehearsal properly, or getting a wonderful background. But instant things like exams and singing at a funeral, or singing at a wedding, or singing those sort of things, you haven't got their luxury. So you've got to know your body and your work so well to be able to overcome any feeling you might have, like singing at a funeral, for example. Yeah, very emotional thing to do. So you've got to know what you're doing, not to end up
bawling. I was going to say, peeling your eyes up. That's definitely, honestly, that's what I can't sing at funerals, because I just think, oh, this person was so wonderful. And I don't even know this person, and I'm just like, what a life. And they're gone too soon. And I don't know how old they are. I get really upset about it.
I do that at weddings, and I think, oh, what are their names again? I'd wait until the people would say their names. And I'd be crying away that I didn't even know their names. Oh, but you've got to be...
The program again. Well, thank you, Jill and John. But then, you're putting on 8 concerts. I think that's absolutely incredible. Do you think, though, that it's really... that's more that something that all singers have to get used to, or just people who are looking to go professional?
No, I think you can never underestimate what experience can do for you. And I think that I will have to say I could only do that many concerts because I had so many pupils. You see, I'd always have people on stage, but they couldn't do the concert. I'd always have someone away somewhere, or I'd have someone sick. So it's only because I had such a pool of pupils that I could do it. No one could do it without that.
Yeah.
Because there'll always be people on the show somewhere, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, 60 students, I think you'd really...
I could easily depend on 25 people being able to be there. But unless you had a big pool of people, you can't expect their lives to stop. If they're in the show, oh, yes, we better leave that night and go and sing a few concerts, you know, that you just have to have that to sort of number to make it work.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, even I've got I think 40 or 45 students, and I think even from that pool, getting 25 of them together,
they'd be sick.
Exactly, they'd be sick or whatever. I think at the last ones we actually only had 18 performing.
Yes, because that's our life.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it is really challenging to organize so many. Did you have then though? That also gives, I suppose, like the students something to look forward to and work towards, right?
That's what I love, that every time they knew when that concert was. From the beginning of the year, they knew. And I loved that everyone did an exam. They had the chance to get that song that month. They could work on it continually, get the feedback from people, know how it worked. They could make a mistake. One girl, there was a huge competition in Rotorua for music theatre. It was a very, very big prize. And one of them, Deirdre, it sang that bridesmaid song and had been that bridesmaid 10 times. She did it sing, and it fell flat. And she thought, my God, what have I done wrong? And she worked it through. The next week she was singing down at Rotorua. There was a heap of people in the thing. She got it absolutely right and won the huge prize.
Yeah.
Now, that was because with comedy, you've got to be careful how to run it. And she just wasn't right. If she hadn't have had that sing concert, she'd have never won that because she would have done what she did at Sing for the big concert, yes. So you can't underestimate that every single performance can teach you something, every opportunity. And what I loved about the professionals that I taught, they were kind enough to come and sing at these concerts so that the younger as in experienced people, could have the opportunity to learn. Well, that's where I've got to be. If I'm going to be a professional, I've got to get that standard.
Oh, I used to love that about the performances, that we could see people that we usually only saw in professional productions, that they also then came and performed alongside us, so that you could see. And also that juxtaposition of like that non-pro, and then you see the pros and you're like, whoa, you saw that kind of that gap between the knowledge and also the voice.
Watching the pros backstage before a performance as compared with the others, fluttering around. All those things, if that pupil was watching and really looking, they'd see. They learn so much.
I used to learn massively. I think I used to do that actually a lot more than I do now, of getting pros to come in and sing with the students, because it also helps the audience kind of get it's hard to sit there and listen to 25 non-professional singers sing. And so just to kind of get that respite of like, whoa, okay, actually, there is like that's something to work towards. And I'll bring that again.
Yes, do that. Because it's an inspiration to everybody. And it's lovely for the person that's doing it too, because it's feeding back into the career they love.
Oh, yeah, I think I forgot to look at it that way, actually. I think I stopped asking my pro friends because I thought it was a little bit annoying for them to sort of like, I'll come and sing at my student show. But actually, I really like that, to think about it in the way that they actually might want to show what they,
This
what
was part of
exactly, that was part of their journey.
those people there that they had she or who was that was part of their journey to where they were getting. Such a wonderful thing for them to think of. Yeah.
That's amazing. Just one last question for you. If there was one thing that you think is that you would look back on to tell your younger self, could there possibly be one thing to tell your younger self as a singer that you think now, after having taught so many singers and being, and being teacher for so long, would there be anything that you would change and tell your younger self?
That's a marvelous question. I actually think that what has worked for me is that I did so much singing myself. Like I did so many oratorios. I did as I said, the opera, the light opera, and operetta, and the music theatre, all those sort of things, that when I had someone come in to have lessons, I could normally, and TB stuff, I could always relate to them, unless they were jazz singers or, that I didn't ever touch. But I could relate to that. And I think that's what, as a teacher, I think that helped me enormously, because whoever it was, I could zoom in on that sort of lahu of that person, because I'd had a touch of all those different sorts of singing.
Do you think so? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think that's, I remember you always used to say that, you've got to, first you're a singer, and then there's the, that you've got to be the singer first. And if I'm remembering this right. And
I was wondering what it's going to be.
No, that you've got to learn, first as the singer to be a singer, before you can be a singing teacher.
Oh, yes.
And I see this in quite a lot. There's sort of like programs popping up here and there that like you can become a singing teacher, just like that.
And
whereas I genuinely believe, I believe the same thing. I think you have to
walk the board.
Exactly. You've got to first do it. Because otherwise you've got no idea what that singer is going through and that feeling. And
one of the strangest questions I've been asked time and time and time again is, did you ever sing yourself? And I just look at them and say, yes. How would I be able to teach singing if I hadn't done it myself? How many people have asked me that? I find it astounding.
Well, I know you say you're a sound. I get that all the time, that people ask me, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm a singer and a singing teacher. I say I'm a singing teacher, and they're like, oh, do you sing? I'm like,
yes, I think you will believe me then.
Yeah.
How many times have you done?
Yeah, I totally believe you. I think it's crazy. I think it's
amazing.
I think it's really shocking that people
even think like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I suppose I think people don't understand that. I mean, you could become a university professor without having actually gone and worked in whatever you're teaching.
Yes,
but to become a university professor, you are doing a lot of research. So you're doing a lot of like teaching that goes on the side. But you might not necessarily. You could be a university professor in business having never worked in the actual business field.
Yes.
But whereas in singing, I don't necessarily think you get the same respect from your students if you haven't had that experience first as a singer. But also you can't talk, like, relate to what they're going through, or in the feelings that they're going through.
Yes, and I think that's another huge thing about singing. Because it's our soul, it's us that's singing. The singing teacher's got to be very empathetic towards pupils, because they really are sharing something, their voice and their life as a singer, they're sharing with you. And I think you've got to be really trusting. They've got to trust you. That's what that I think, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. And you've got to trust them, which is interesting.
I think it's fascinating. Well, thank you very much, Janice.
Thank you so much.